Welcome back to Money Signal. As always, this is not about politics, ideology, or opinions. We focus strictly on economic consequences, capital flows, and systemic adjustments over the last few days, and especially between January 12th and January 13th, 2026. Several developments reported by Reuters point to a broader pattern, not a crisis, not a single shock, but a moment where multiple global systems are quietly adjusting at the same time. Let's start with monetary credibility. On January 12th and into early January 13th, Reuters reported that global central banks were discussing a coordinated public stance in support of the Federal Reserve and its leadership, following political actions and investigations directed at the Fed. Importantly, this did not involve interest rate changes, balance sheet adjustments, or emergency liquidity programs. At first glance, this may seem abstract. After all, if no rates moved, why should markets care? Because modern monetary systems do not operate only on actions. They operate on expectations. Investors, companies, and governments make long-term decisions based on whether they believe monetary institutions can act independently and consistently over time. When that independence is questioned, even indirectly, markets begin adjusting behavior before policy ever changes. The cause here is not inflation data or employment figures. The cause is uncertainty around decision-making authority. Even if the Fed remains fully operational, the perception that future decisions could face political pressure is enough to alter risk assessments. The possible consequences tend to appear gradually. Long-term borrowing costs may rise slightly, not because rates are higher, but because lenders demand compensation for uncertainty. Currency markets may become more sensitive, and international investors may rebalance exposure, especially when the US dollar plays such a central role in global trade and reserves. At the same time, another adjustment was reported on January 13th by Reuters, this time affecting capital flows rather than monetary governance. Bloomberg Index Services delayed the inclusion of Indian government bonds into a major global bond index. This may sound technical, but the mechanism is straightforward. Large institutional investors often follow indices automatically. When a country's bonds are added, capital flows in by default. When inclusion is delayed, that capital simply does not arrive. The cause here is regulatory and procedural. The effect, however, is structural. Without those automatic inflows, governments rely more heavily on domestic buyers or selective foreign investors, often at higher interest rates. Over time, this changes funding costs and alters how portfolios are constructed globally. This does not isolate India. It subtly affects how investors think about emerging markets as a category. When integration into global benchmarks slows, capital tends to become more cautious, more selective, and more sensitive to risk, especially in an environment where global liquidity is already tighter than it was a few years ago. While monetary credibility and capital allocation were adjusting, a third system was shifting on the production side. On January 12th, Reuters reported that members of the G7, along with allied economies, intensified coordination to reduce reliance on China for rare earths and other critical minerals. This is not a sudden trade conflict. It is a reassessment of dependency. Rare earths are not exotic materials used only in niche products. They are embedded in electric vehicles, renewable energy systems, advanced electronics, and defense equipment. When supply is concentrated in one region, it introduces vulnerability. Governments and companies tend to reassess that vulnerability during periods of geopolitical uncertainty. The consequence of diversification is rarely immediate disruption. Instead, it usually means higher costs over time. New mines, processing facilities, and supply routes require capital, time, and infrastructure. Those costs eventually flow downstream, influencing production expenses and, in some cases, consumer prices. Once these investments are made, supply chains rarely revert to their previous structure. The adjustment becomes permanent. Currency markets have begun reflecting these overlapping pressures. On January 13, Reuters reported the Japanese yen weakening to multi-month lows. While the US dollar showed instability amid uncertainty surrounding US monetary governance, currencies often react before other markets because they sit at the intersection of confidence, capital flows, and policy expectations. When investors are unsure which system offers more stability, exchange rates tend to absorb that uncertainty first. This does not require panic. It requires repositioning. Taken together, these developments form a consistent picture. Monetary credibility is being defended. Capital flows are being delayed or redirected. Strategic supply chains are being reevaluated. Currencies are adjusting to reflect those shifts. Nothing is broken. No emergency measures have been triggered, but assumptions are being tested. For us in Money Signal, this signal indicates that the global financial and production systems are under pressure because confidence, capital allocation, and strategic dependencies are being reassessed at the same time. That process does not generate headlines every day. It generates structural change over time. And that is what we track. Sources, Reuters, January 12th, 13th, 2026.